Netball is a ball sport played by two teams of 7 players. Games are played on a rectangular court with raised goal rings at each end. The object is to score goals from within a defined area by throwing a ball into a ring attached to a 3.05 meters (10 feet) high post. Players are assigned specific positions which define their roles within the team and restrict their movement to certain areas of the court. During general play, a player with the ball can hold on to it for only 3 seconds before shooting for a goal or passing to another player. The winning team is the one who scores the most goals. Netball games are 60 minutes long, but variations have been developed to increase the game's pace and appeal to a wider audience. Netball is played by more than 20 million people in more than 80 countries worldwide and is the most popular in Commonwealth nations. It is predominantly played by women. In 1995, netball became a recognized sport by the International Olympic Committee (IOC). Netball is the most popular women's sport in Australia, with an estimated 1 million players nationwide. Although internationally identified as a sport for women, there is no reason why it can't be played with mixed teams, and more boys and men are becoming increasingly involved. The world's 2 major domestic competitions are the ANZ Championship, played in Australia and New Zealand, and English Netball Super League. What are the rules? Number 1. You cannot travel with the ball. Number 2. There are only 7 players on the court from each team at all times unless a player has been sent off by the referee. Number 3. You cannot snatch or hit the ball out of a player's hand. This is called contact. You must stand beside the player until the ball has left the player's hands. Number 4. When defending the ball, you must stand 3 feet away from the person with the ball. Number 5. Players cannot hold the ball for more than 3 seconds. That includes throwing it in the air, no one else touches it, and you catch it again, or bouncing the ball. Number 6. Players are not allowed to move into the areas that they are not designated to. Number 7. When the defense and the circle are called up by the referee, they have to stand beside the shooter. The shooter has the decision to shooting the ball or passing the ball. Finally, when the ball goes out of the court, the team who last touched the ball hands the ball over to the opposing team. They have 3 seconds to stand outside of the court at the line when it went out and pass the ball. What equipment is required? Number 1. Goalposts. Goalposts must be 3.05 meters tall and be placed at the midpoint of each goal line, different from basketball posts, so the goalpost does not have a backboard. It only consists of a metal ring with a diameter of 38 centimeters, from which the net hangs. The shooters of the teams are required to shoot the ball through the rim to score a goal. Because there is no backboard, it is very difficult than it looks. The goalposts are mostly padded with sponges to reduce the risk of injuries occurring should a player knock into one. Number 2. Ball. Another essential equipment required is the netball itself. The circumference is ranging from the 69 to 71 centimeters, and the weight from 0.4 to 0.45 kilograms. The netball is striped with different colors combination depending on the team or the brand of the ball. Number 3. Player attire. The members of the teams are dressed in their uniform sports team's attire, which can be either jerseys paired with a bottom or simply a netball dress. They both allow for flexible movement. Each member gets a bib during game time, which indicates their playing positions. The bib comes in a set of 7 per set, which are the number of positions that a netball team has a court at any time. During the game, the bib has to be worn at all times to avoid confusion between players at the position they are playing. Most importantly, each player must choose the right pair of court/netball shoes. You cannot simply use any pair of camera shoes. The players must have a correct pair of shoes which will allow for smooth movement and provide the most comfort and support during the game time. Wearing the wrong shoes may cause injuries or cause blisters to form around your foot. Number 4. Additional support gear. Players can also choose to wear knee or ankle guards for greater safety or to prevent sustaining or worsening injuries. Players may have the option to use kinesio tape to treat their sports injuries or for any of the other function guard offer. during the game. In 1890, a 30-year-old Canadian, James Naismith, had invented men's basketball game and was asked to develop a women's version of basketball game by the Boston YMCA. Then the miniature form of netball game was formed. The game was then brought to Australia, as to many other countries, by English school teachers in the early 1900s. In England in 1895, ladies used broomsticks for replacing goalposts and wet paper bags for baskets. They played like a basketball game on grass. They wore long skirts, bustle backs, nipped waists, and button-up shoes which impeded them from running, and their leg of mutton sleeves restricted arm movement, making dribbling and long passes very difficult. The ladies decided to adapt the game to accommodate these restrictions. Women enjoyed the game, but they found that the long passes were difficult to execute in the game due to their limited strength and movement. So the ladies decided to change the game to suit their situation. In 1898, the court was divided into thirds. The number of players were increased from 5 to 9, and a smaller ball, size of a soccer ball, was used to play the new version of netball. There were 2 umpires, 2 scorers, and 2 timekeepers, almost as many officials as players for each match. After time, the game of netball was also stated as women's basketball. Until 1970, the game was called netball by the All-Australian Women's Basketball Association. At the same time, the association became known as All-Australian Netball Association. In 1901, England was the first to set rules of netball, officially came into existence through the country. At the turn of the century, school teachers from England travelled to many countries of then a British Empire, and the game of netball, or ladies basketball, went with them. Once the game developed locally, it was soon after each country had its own different rules and distinct methods of the game, even developing new names for the game. In Australia and New Zealand, where the game was established before 1901, it was called women's basketball, and the name was changed to netball in those 2 countries in 1970. Australia's first international match was competed in 1938 against New Zealand during the National Championships in Melbourne, with Australia defeating New Zealand by 40-11. The Australian team was selected to tour New Zealand in 1939, but with the outbreak of the war, tour was cancelled and it was then took place in 1948. Australia by this time was playing a 7-a-side game, but New Zealand until 1956 played a 9-a-side, although the 7-a-side game was played on this tour. In the history of netball, one of the landmarks was when Australia travelled by ship to the first overseas team to visit England, which consisted of women's basketball team going to the birthplace of netball and having to adapt to different rules. But the Australian team won 54 of 57 games, including the test against England, 14-11, at Wembley Stadium for a crowd of more than 5,000 people. Following this successful tour, in London a conference was held in 1957 to agree on an international code of rules to be trialled in each country over the next 3 years. Countries represented at this conference were England, New Zealand, Northern Ireland, South Africa, USA, Wales, and Australia. In 1960, the International Federation of Women's Basketball and Netball Associations became a reality at a conference in Ceylon, Sri Lanka, attended by representatives from England, Ceylon, South Africa, West Indies, New Zealand, and Australia. The first World Tournament was held in 1963, with 11 teams competing, was held in England and Australia were undefeated. Every 4 years the World Championships are staged and Australia has been title holders on 8 occasions. In 1990, netball was a demonstration sport at the Auckland Games, however was not included in the Commonwealth Games program for the first time until 1998 in Kuala Lumpur. Australia won the Commonwealth Games gold medal. In 1998 and 2002, even though they were unable to defeat their title in 2006 located in Melbourne, losing the gold medal to New Zealand 60-55 in a closely fought final. Australia has claimed the World Championship title in 9 out of 12 World Netball Championships held since 1963, also including the 2007 World Netball Championships, which they defeated New Zealand 42-38 in Auckland. The AIS, Australian Institute of Sport, is the principal partner of the Australian Netball Association. AIS is Australia's strategic high-performance sport agency. The AIS is responsible and accountable for leading the delivery of Australia's international sporting success. Since 1981, the AIS has been the cradle of Australia's national sports system, one that is recognized the world over its ability to identify, develop, and produce world, Olympic, and Paralympic champions. Junior Netball Policy. Netball Australia adapted the Junior Netball Policy in 2005, which aimed to provide a safe, healthy, and fun environment in which young people can participate in the game. The policy was developed in collaboration with the 8 state and territory netball member organizations. Together with coaches, teachers, parents, and netball administrators, the policy applies to all junior netball programs covering children aged 5 to 17 years. The policy is reinforced by a series of resources to assist local associations, clubs, and schools with a means of quickly referring to key issues and strategic to assist in the implementation of the policy. Member Protection Policy. Netball Australia is committed to treating people with respect, dignity, and fairness. All members are to participate in an environment which is enjoyable, safe, and healthy, which resulted in the organization to developing objectives to create a safe and tolerant sporting environment. The recent development and adoption of the Member Protection Policy reflects Netball Australia's commitment to serving and protecting its members and participants throughout all levels of the sport. The specific policy is one of the components, which is overall strategy, which also complements a range of other organization policies including junior netball, umpire development, governance, finance, information technology, and privacy policies. In Australia, the ANZ Championships are the organisation which hold tournaments and competing between national teams in Australia. The ANZ Championships were launched in 2008 with a total of 10 teams, 5 from Australia and 5 from New Zealand. It succeeded 2 national leagues, Australia's Commonwealth Bank Trophy, 1997 to 2007, and the New Zealand National Bank Cup, 1998 to 2008. The TTNL Limited owns the competition joint ventures between Netball Australia and Netball New Zealand. Netball international competitions are sponsored by the International Netball Federation (INF). The INF is the sole internationally recognized governing body for netball affiliated to the sport, formerly known as the General Association of the International Sports Federations, the International World Games Association, and the Association of Recognized Sports Federations, receiving funding from the International Olympic Committee. Over 70 national netball federations are part of the INF groups into 5 regions: Africa, Asia, Americas, Europe, and Oceania, which with a respective regional federation. Average netball player's income. Recently, an article was published stating that the average income of the national netball player is usually $10,000 from the Australian Diamond team. However, they want to increase to $25,000. Many more articles were published stating that how netballers don't get paid enough for their efforts and they deserve a pay rise. Participation numbers of netball. The Australian Bureau of Statistics states that in 2012, 220,400 females enjoyed playing netball as a sport, which was 16% out of the whole data. This is the number of females playing netball from all around Australia.